Hi you guys, welcome, välkomna, добро пожаловать. My name is Salman Sal Rogers. It's Friday and it's another True Crime Stories with Sal. As always, my darlings, I hope you had an amazing week and a great weekend to look forward to relax, to rewind, meditate, take care of your mental health, take care of yourself and your loved ones. Just the FYI, you might see me sipping on a new mug, or it's not new, I had it for a while, but actually got it when I was in Sweden 2 years ago, I think. Oh my God, it was 2 years ago. Yeah, I need to go back and visit my family. But anyways, this is a mug. It says Stockholm, the capital of Sweden. It's like a little Stockholm on the mug, and I love this little coffee mug. It's very cute. It's a little bit smaller than my usual cup, the S cup, but I like it. It's like a little smaller dose of coffee. And speaking of coffee, my darlings, make sure you have your beverage of choice because today's story is a crazy one, full with twists and surprises. And this case is actually one of my favorite cases. Sounds weird to say, but you understand what why I say it at the end of this case. It's one of those incredible cases that you basically see in the movies. Like you won't believe the ending until you hear it. A little disclaimer before I get into the case. I will be discussing murder. I will be discussing or showing graphic crime scene photos. I will be saying a warning before I show that, so just so you know. But as always, this is a true crime story channel, so I feel like by this point you guys already know it is brutal, it is gruesome stuff that I am covering on this channel. And this today I will be revealing the victim's true identity as well as the perpetrator. That's pretty much it for today's disclaimer. And let's get into today's case. So today's case takes us back to 2006, April of 2006, in a small little town called Millstadt in Illinois. And Millstadt has a population of about, or back in 2006, had a population about 4,000 people. So it's a very, very rural, unknown, little small, cute community town. And if it wasn't for this case, people would probably never know about Millstadt. A young girl, a 17-year-old girl by the name of Ashely Reeves, were living in Millstadt, was born and raised. She had a younger sister. Her name was Casey, and she lived together with her parents. Growing up, Ashely was described as a very hardworking student. She had lots of friends. And she was very, very sweet and, loving person. She was also very good at sports. Basketball in particular was her favorite sport, and she was very good at it. And she basically didn't give her parents any hard times or any rebellious strikes. She also, her sister, younger sister Casey, looked up to her big sister Ashely, and she saw her as her role model, and she loved her sister a lot, and they had a very good sister relationship between each other. Also, Ashely had a serious boyfriend. His name was Jeremy, and they were together for quite a while. Ashley's parents approved of Jeremy. They liked this guy. He was very sweet and very loving and respectful both to Ashely and Ashley's parents. So they felt like Ashely, was in good hands with Jeremy, and they didn't have any issues with him whatsoever. Despite being such a lovely person, sister, daughter, classmate, girlfriend, Ashely Reeves was actually hiding a secret. So on a Thursday morning in the mid-April, Ashely wakes up. It's a regular, school morning. She gets dressed for school, and she tells her parents that morning that she's actually heading over to a job interview in another small town a few miles away. And after that job interview, she would go and play some basketball at a park a well-known park that a lot of teenagers actually go to play ball or what have you. So she would not return home right away after school. Her parents said, sure, absolutely. This is something, usually Ashely goes and play ball after school. It's normal, nothing out of the ordinary. The only thing the parents said is make sure you come home before your curfew, and her curfew was 10:30. During her school hours, she met up with her boyfriend Jeremy, and she asked to borrow his truck or his SUV to go to her job interview, and also then to borrow his car to go play ball afterwards. And he said, sure, absolutely. He gave her the car keys. She kissed him, thank you, and she left. She picked up her sister. They kind of like ended the classes together, and both of them drove back home. She dropped off her sister. Her sister said good luck with the job interview, and Ashely drove away. 10 p.m. rolls around, and Ashely's mother asks Casey, Ashely's little sister, younger sister, if she has spoken to Ashely, because it's been a while now, it's been a few hours, if she knows how the interview went and what have you, if Ashely is on her way home. And Casey replied to her mother that she has actually not been hearing nothing from Ashely. She texted her, but she hasn't got any text back or what have you. And at this point, Ashely's mother didn't worry much. She said, okay, I'll just text Jeremy and see if he knows anything. She probably with him or what have you. So Ashely's mom calls Jeremy, Ashely's boyfriend, and Jeremy basically replies the same thing as Casey. He hasn't heard anything from Ashely since he borrowed his car, or during school. And he actually also been texting Ashely quite a few texts to see if everything is good, how the interview went, but she hasn't replied to him. At this point, Ashely's mom starts to get a little bit worried, so she basically starts to call around Ashely's closest friends and ask if they know anything, if they were at the park with her. And basically all the friends that Ashely's mom was talking to, they kind of had the same answer, that no, we actually haven't spoken to Ashely since school. So at this point, the red flags, the alarms just goes off, and Ashely's mom is actually super worried. So she decides to call the police. And mind you that this also is now past Ashely's curfew time, which was 10:30 p.m. And according to Ashely's mom, Ashely actually never ever missed her curfew, and if she ever did, she would always call or text and let the mom or dad know that she's running a little bit late, but she's on her way home. So when it comes to being home on time and what have you, Ashely was very good at communicating with her parents to let them know what's up. The police in Millstadt would frequently get calls from worried parents about their teenage kids, that they can not get hold of them or what have you. But usually the kid is just, kind of rebellious. They don't answer their parents, or maybe turn off their phone. But after a few hours or even a day or two, they turn up back home, what have you. They just, was just rebellious and maybe run away or what have you. So when Ashely's mother called and said that she couldn't locate or get in touch with her daughter, the first thought that came into the police's mind was oh, okay, it's another case of a rebellious kid. But then when the mother said that none of Ashely's friends or boyfriend had heard from Ashely this whole day, the alarm, red flags and the alarm went off. And because usually the kid that runs away, or the kids that runs away or being rebellious towards their parents, they still communicate with their friends. They may be not answering the parents' calls or texts, but they still have some sort of communication with 1, 2, or 3 friends or boyfriend or what have you. So the police took this case seriously, and they immediately start basically tracing Ashely's last steps. And since the mom told the police that she was driving her boyfriend Jeremy's SUV, the police started with tracking down the SUV, and they went to the park that Ashely was playing ball at, or the park that she said she will be playing ball at, and they found Jeremy's SUV. It was parked at the park's parking lot. When they approached the car, they didn't find anything out of the ordinary. They just saw some of Ashely's clothes, like her, clothes that she probably wore to the interview, and then she changed into like some basketball gear, clothes or what have you. So they didn't find anything suspicious. After locating the car, they start a search around the park. So the whole night into early morning, they just combed over the whole park and the surrounding areas. They couldn't find any traces or any leads or any belongings to Ashely. So the next step the police took was to interview some of Ashely's close friends and boyfriends. So they started with Jeremy. And as soon as Jeremy, they start questioning him, the police kind of like quickly could notice that he was actually telling the truth. Like he was sincerely worried and sincerely sad about his girlfriend being missing. He had an alibi. He was actually out of town visiting his uncle, or like in the neighboring town visiting his uncle, and the uncle confirmed that Jeremy was with him. He was also very cooperative. He said that he would take a lie detector test if they asked him to do. I don't know if they did a lie detector test or not, but he was willing to do so. And he basically provided the police with all of the evidence or all of the information that he knew, and answered all the questions. His story was the same. He didn't change the story a bit. So the detectives that were interviewing Jeremy felt like he is innocent. They didn't think that he had nothing to do with Ashely's disappearance. The next people that the detectives interviewed was Ashely's close friends. And upon interviewing Ashely's close friend, she actually revealed that Ashely been keeping a secret from her parents, from her boyfriend, from her sister. And this secret was that she actually had a second relationship, or kind of like seeing someone on the side. So she had her relationship that everyone knew about with Jeremy, her long-term boyfriend. But then she recently, in a couple of months ago, started seeing this other guy that was a secret relationship, basically. And the park that she frequently was visiting to play ball was actually an excuse to meet this guy. And when police hears about this, they of course immediately, who is this guy? We need to know his name. The friend tells the police that this guy's name is Samson, or going by Sam. So Samson Shelton is his real full name, but he's going by Sam. And so the police locate this Sam guy, and he was actually at a baseball practice. They just, walked in there, took him for questioning. He was still in his baseball uniform when he was in the police interrogation room. Another thing that is also note to mention is that during the first hours of trying to locate Ashely, before the police found Jeremy's SUV, Ashely's mom and sister was driving around, looking for Ashely, and luckily Ashely's phone they kind of like connected to her mom's phone, or they share the same provider. So the phone provider could actually provide Ashely's mom with the recent phone numbers that Ashely been texting or calling. And it was one number in particular that stood out. So Ashely's mom decided to call that number. And that number actually belonged to Sam. And he answered, but he was kind of like, you could hear that he was out somewhere. It was like, voices, music in the background. And she's like, oh, hi, this is Ashely's mom. We're looking for Ashely. She's missing. Do you know where she's at? And according to Ashely's mom, he was very rushed and he was like, no, I actually haven't talked to her, seen her at all. I don't know. And, I had to go. I got to go. So, he just hung up. So during the questioning of Sam, he basically denies anything to do with Ashely. He denies the so-called relationship. He just said that he knows her from town, because again, it's a small town, everyone knows everyone pretty much, but that's about it. But then when the police lays the information that according to Ashely's friend, you and Ashely are seeing each other, in fact you are in a sexual relationship. And when they laid this fact upon him, then he kind of like changed his story, and he said that yes, they had had sex once, but he immediately regrets it. And after that, he felt like Ashely became obsessed with him, and that she followed him around everywhere, and he kind of like was dodging her and didn't want to see her. She was calling him constantly, and he was ignoring her, what have you. As soon as Sam reveals to the police that, in fact, he had a sexual relationship with Ashely, this became increasingly alarming and worrying to the police, because you see, Sam was actually a 27-year-old high school teacher. He was not directly Ashely's teacher. He was a teacher at a rival high school. But again, he knew of Ashely. Now we have this 27-year-old high school teacher and a 17-year-old missing teenager. So definitely this is a huge red flags to the police. After 12 hours of questioning and going nowhere, basically Sam is, kind of like changing his stories. First he didn't know Ashely, then he knew her, then they had a sexual relationship once, or they had, sex together once, and then she became obsessed. His story was kind of going, changing every minute and just going nowhere. So one of the detectives knew of Sam and knew that he was actually living with his mom and grandma, and he knew that Sam was very close to his mom and grandma. So he kind of like played the grandma card with him, and he said, what would you do if your grandma and mom would, listen to you right now, listen to you lying to the police? Like everything that they taught you since you were a little boy, do you really think that they would approve of you sitting here and lying to us? And that basically cracked Sam. He, in the first time of those 12 hours, started showing some kind of remorse, and he actually started crying. And he said to the investigators he needs a little minute by himself. They let him be, and when they returned back to the room, he confessed. And this is the confession that Sam Shelton told the police. So the evening after Ashely returned back from her job interview, she went to the park, as she told her family and friends, and she met up with Sam. They went into his car and they had sex in the back seat. And afterwards, they kind of sat in the front seat and start talking. And after a few minutes, they, start arguing. And it became a very heated argument, and Sam just wanted to kind of drive away. And according to Sam, Ashely refused to leave his car, even though he asked her to leave. He even kind of tried to push her out for her to go, but she refused, and she wanted to sit in his car to talk everything over and continue the basically the conversation or what have you. But at this point, Sam was just furious. So he leaned over to Ashely, where she was sitting in the passenger seat, and he put her in a chokehold. And just a little side note about Sam. Not only was he a high school teacher, he was also a pro wrestler in that town. And so basically putting someone in a chokehold don't know why I want to say chark. Anyways, putting someone in a chokehold was, very familiar to Sam. So when he puts Ashely in a chokehold, after a few seconds, according to Sam, he squeezed probably a little bit too hard and he hears a popping sound, basically Ashely's neck breaking. And at this point, he lets go. He's panicked, and as soon as he lets go, Ashely her body just falls over in the front of the car, and he's just like start looking around to see if anyone noticed what he just did, and he couldn't see anyone seeing him. So he then attended to Ashely to see if she was still alive, and she was. She was still breathing. And instead of calling 911, calling for ambulance, emergency, what does he decide to do? He decided to finish the job. So he'd start to manually, with his bare hands, strangling Ashely. And after a few minutes of strangling her, he realized that this was harder than it looks on TV or in movies. So he takes off his belt that he's wearing and he wraps the belt around Ashely's neck and he pulls the belt tighter and tighter. And at this point, according to Sam, he has a very weak stomach and he can barely watch like horror gore movies, slasher movies. And he refers to like Texas Chainsaw Massacre, that type of genre. So in the midst of him, choking Ashely with his belt, he could see her face. So basically her face was facing him and he was like locking eyes with her and he could see her face turning to this gray bluish color. Her tongue was out of her mouth and she was making this gurgling noises. And according to Sam, this was too much for him to handle. So he turns her around so she's facing the window of the car window and he's now pulling the belt towards him. He actually also puts one of his foot on Ashely's back and kind of pulls the belt tighter and tighter until the belt snaps. Like it literally snaps on Ashely's neck. And at this point, he felt like he did the job. She's dead. Great, but now I have to get rid of her. So he tucks her in on the floor of the car and he drives away. And he drives to another park a few miles away. And this park is more like kind of like a picnic park. It's like very foresty, very like, greenery. So it's more like of a kind of like a hiking park, whatever, like a picnic park. So he drives into the forest area and he, gets Ashely's broken body out of his car. He dumps her on the moss or the grass, and he kind of covers her with some leaves and some branches. And he drives away, and he goes to a dance. And that's the time when he was at this dance. They had also surveillance footage of him at the dance. That's about the time when Ashely's mom actually calls him and asks him if he have heard or seen Ashely, and he said no. After the confession, Sam is willing to take the police and detectives to the crime scene too, where he dumped Ashely's body, and the police and the detectives rush over there. And now at this point, it's night. It's also been raining that day, so it's kind of like foggy-ish. It's very cold and it's very dark. So they comb over not the whole, but a good chunk of the wooded areas, particularly the area where Sam says that he dumps the body. And since it's dark and cold and, rainy, he was kind of like disoriented at first and was not sure exactly what spot it was. So it took the police and the detectives a few good 30-40 minutes to locate Ashely's body. And I'm not going to include it in the video, but I'm going to leave a little link to the actual footage of police looking in the woods and then locating the body. So it's very graphic and it is scary. Little bit disturbing when they found the body, but it is linked down below, so you can always click the link in the description box. But anyways, after 30-40 minutes, they they locate Ashely's body, and when they come closer, they could see that she's basically kind of like, yeah, very pale, and her arms is in this grotesque, like kind of like a spasm move, or yeah, and her neck is very grotesque. Like you could see that the neck is broken, and she's just laying there completely still with her eyes open. And when the police comes a little bit closer to just check the pulse or what have you, miraculously, she's still alive. They could see that she blinks, that her, that she has a breath, her chest goes up and down, and they just panic. They realize that she's still alive, despite being in that woods, in that cold, in that rain, with a broken neck, paralyzed for 30 hours. She's still alive. The police quickly called the ambulance. The ambulance rushed to the spot. They pick her up, and I'm going to now insert some photos of basically of Ashely's injuries. So just a little fair warning, they are graphic, so just FYI. So here's the first photo. As you guys can see, her neck, you could see the marks, the strangulation marks, and what have you. Here's the second photo that you can see. But according to the ambulance and to the doctors, Ashely was in a very, very bad shape. She was like basically clinging to life. She was basically almost, dead. She was paralyzed. She couldn't speak. She couldn't. When they found her, the police grabbed her hand, but she couldn't reply. She could only blink, and the doctors told Ashely's parents that, even though they found her, it's a very, very small chance that she would survive. Sam was charged of attempted murder, and this guy is just something else. I don't know if he didn't understand the severity of it or if he was just a cold-hearted psychopath. When he was charged, instead of kind of like being worried or ask for a lawyer or what have you, he asked the detectives if he could remove his contacts because they're bothering him. And when the detective said, no, I don't think so, he said, oh, so I can't remove my contacts? And then he also requested, is it possible for me to get a private toilet? Saying some bullshit about him not being able to pee in front of other people. Ashely's surgery went great actually, but she was placed in a coma, and it took a few weeks for her to recover that coma. And when she woke up, she was basically had to start from scratch. She didn't know how to talk. She didn't know how to walk. She didn't know how to move her arms, her limbs, and she didn't know how to eat. So it was basically like she was reborn again. She was like a newborn baby again, even though she was 17. So the recovery process was a very lengthy and a lot of struggles and a lot of pain, but miraculously she recovered. During her recovery process, it took about a year. Sam was actually, like I said, he was charged for attempted murder, but he was released on bail because, according to his lawyer, he was this good guy. He was a teacher. He was a respected member of the community. He had never committed such a heinous act before. And, he's just a good guy. So, and he also lives with his grandma and mom, and he takes basically care of them. So the lawyer pushed for him to be like on house arrest for that year until the trial, and the judge agreed. But during his house arrest, Sam was actually attempting to commit suicide. He basically overdosed on some pills, and according to the paramedics, on his chest he wrote basically, "Don't try to save me" or something. And when the paramedics arrived, they, kind of like, pumped his stomach, woke him up. As soon as he was back to life, woken up, he was furious. He started spitting at the paramedics, at the doctor. He even kicked one nurse in the hospital in the face and called her some racial slurs. Anyways, a year after his house arrest, he was a trial, and he was sentenced to 20 years for attempted murder. And as far as my research goes, he's actually up for parole in 2024. So it's a year from now, 2 years from now. So it's pretty soon. Ashely is 32 years old now. She's married. She has 2 kids. I don't know if she still lives in Millstadt, Illinois. I don't know what happened with her and her boyfriend, Jeremy. I don't know if they broke up after this whole thing, or, it wasn't, I couldn't find that out. But anyways, she is now healthy as far as like physically, but mentally, of course, she still struggles, and she still have some nightmares now and then. She can't remember anything of that incident, of that particular day. She said that she can't remember anything like a few days prior to the incident, on the incident, and of course, weeks after the incident. But she can't remember that the argument that happened between her and Sam in the car was because she tried to break things off with Sam. But according to Sam in the interrogation room, he said that he tried to break off things with her. So according to the police, this is just speculation, or according what they think, their theory is that, afterwards, Ashely tried to break up things with Sam. Maybe she felt guilty. She didn't want to have two, relationships or what have you. And that made Sam furious, and he, this was the result, basically, of her trying to break up with him. So that's the incredible story of Ashely Reeves, and that's what I said in the beginning of this video, that this is probably one of my favorite cases that I covered, because I love hearing about this incredible survival, like the will to survive, and the aftermath, and the will to continue living as normal as you can. It's not a lot of people that have that will, and for those that survive this horrific and literally she was basically dead. Like, she was paralyzed for 30 hours in the cold, and also when they found her body, she was covered in insect bites and insects and what have you. It's just crazy to me that she was still alive, and how strong our human bodies are. We don't think so, but when it comes down to it, it's like incredible. Lifetime made actually a movie. It's called Left for Dead, if you guys are interested in seeing it. But it's pretty interesting. It's called Left for Dead. You can watch it on Hulu or any Lifetime, whatever they show Lifetime movies. What do you guys think about this? Have you heard of it? If you have, let me know if it's any parts of the story that I maybe missed, or what have you, or got wrong. Let me know in the comments. If you have future cases for me, darlings, leave comments. I always read my comments. And that's the case, my loves. I hope you enjoy the case, and I hope I see you next Friday. Till then, please stay safe. Please take care of yourself. If you do leave comments about this case, what have you, remember, always stay positive. You never know who reads the comments or watches the videos, so we always want to leave a positive comment. You would not want someone talking bad about you, your family, what have you, so just think twice before you leave any mean comments. Just keep it for yourself. And like, share, and subscribe before you click off this video. And as always, my darlings, I appreciate you guys so much for spending your time with me on this Friday, or whatever day you're watching this video. I hope I see you guys in my next one. Ciao, cacao!